listening to the 123 show with me, Noreen Mir, this Thursday afternoon. Now, let's turn to our first topic and guests of today. In the next 15 minutes or so, we'll be talking about the effects of the pandemic on children and how caregivers and schools can address issues related to the emotional well-being of young people. And to talk about this, I'm really delighted to be chatting with the team behind Just Feel, who are a local group that provides social emotional education support to students and teachers. So I'd like to welcome to the program Raymond Yang, the co-founder of Just Feel, a member of the board of directors, Dr. Min Tran, and also Jacunda Young, who is the shaper from Just Feel. We'll get Jacunda to talk about the role of the shaper later on. So welcome to the program, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
I'm happy to be talking with you guys again.
Yeah, it's great to have you all. We are on Facebook Live as well, so feel free to join us there. Noreen Mir on RTHK Radio 3. Feel free to maybe share your experiences or any questions that you may have related to the emotional well-being of young people. So maybe, Raymond, if I can start off with you first, can you remind our listeners a little bit more about the work you do at Just Feel? What do you do there?
Just Feel was founded in 2019 with the vision to transform the communication culture in Hong Kong schools and families because we really value student emotional well-being. So we cooperate with schools and families by empowering teachers and parents so that everyone can talk with the students in a more compassionate way and to make sure our connection is better and the emotional well-being will be enhanced.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of the effects of the pandemic on students. They've been sort of out of school close to a year now. I mean, counting the summer breaks and all the holidays, close to a year. What sorts of effects has that had on the emotional well-being of young people? Maybe Dr. Min Tran?
Yeah, I mean, it's had tremendous effects on all of us, right? Adults included. But on children specifically, I think one of the main things that our students are missing is just being able to be with their friends and to play. You know, even when they're allowed in school, they have to socially distance, they have to wear their masks. During lunch, they can't sit together. They have to be as far apart as possible with these shields between them. So I think they miss just being able to play naturally like kids do. So that's one effect. Another is, of course, online learning. That's a headache for parents, I know, everywhere. A huge headache for you all. And for the children, it's so hard for them to look at the screen and focus for hours. For younger children, particularly kindergartners to grade 2, it's not natural for them to learn in a sustained way online. And for older kids, it's very difficult for them to focus because it's so easy to be distracted when you're in an online setting.
Absolutely. Jacunda, what are some of your thoughts on this? I mean, the effects of the pandemic on some of the young people you've worked with?
With regards to class suspension for throughout almost a year in the past few months, we just have organized and collaborated with school. One of the cases with St. Bonaventure Catholic Primary School. So during the time in June last year, it was a class resumption day. And we didn't have class normally like before, but we organized an activity called the Compassionate Forest, and we invite students, teachers, and to share their feelings and thoughts in the past few months during class suspension at home. So we invite them to write down their positive, negative feelings, and some words of encouragement to each other, and we can spot. Some of them share that they are very grateful because during the time of class suspension, they were allowed to spend more time with their family. But then some of them say that they are quite boring, and some of them are very nervous because they're very unfamiliar with schools and studies to catch up with a lot of work. And so we actually allow the space and a room for teachers to get to know students more and the situation to kind of to catch up with them, to see how they could help with them and adjust their teaching pace in the class afterwards.
Yeah. One thing that, Min mentioned just now is also the connections. When we talk about schools, it's not just a place to learn. It's also for students to form friendships and meaningful connections, and those are their peers. How do students stay in touch when they don't see each other? We're a bit older. Well, I'm a bit older. We used to call each other, but I feel like now a lot of the connections are sort of made online, so you're facing a screen again. How do students stay in touch with each other? What do they tell you?
Well, I think I heard cases that they barely contact with each other, and because they don't have, not every students are very fortunate to have like stable connection to the internet or smart devices. And I heard some of them are really disappointed because they almost lost connection with the friends for almost a year. And that is why it's really important to let them to kind of get connected with each other by having a place and a chance to mingle with each other and to see how each other has been going on throughout the past months. So I can tell that they're really excited during the Compassionate Forest Day, that they find it very interesting to get to know what each other has been doing, or they're reading books and having some shows, or some missing each other very much.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to do that, to connection.
Raymond?
Yeah, in class suspension, we can also hold some virtual space for students to connect with their teachers and other students. For example, Justville offers some activities for teachers to organize online Zoom sessions so that they can play together and build relationship, also share their feelings. Yeah, it's not as good as face-to-face, we all know that, but it doesn't mean that it's not nice and necessary, because school or growth for one student is much more than just academic learning.
Yeah. Dr. Tran?
The well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's easier for the older students. So if they're already on social media, the high school students in particular, Discord is a very popular platform for them. They're all chatting on Discord, and it's not just for the gamers. But for the younger students, I think they need more support from us adults to create those virtual spaces that Raymond was talking about, whether it's through teachers or through parents. You still do those celebrations. You still have the holiday gatherings online in a safe way, or the birthday parties. There are many creative ways in which we can play games and connect even virtually.
Yeah. How are the young people sort of expressing their emotions? Because, I don't know, thinking back, when I was little, the emotions sort of go between happy and sad, and I don't know, there's not a large vocabulary to express emotions. How are students expressing their emotions, and what sorts of feelings do they share with you? Do they feel lonely, perhaps?
Yeah, we encourage them to share their real feelings by our tools. So you can see here, just feel feelings and this card.
Oh, cool.
And also we show them in a virtual PowerPoint so that they can choose or they can even draw. So for example, I can say, hey, Min, what's your feeling now?
So today I get to be on this awesome radio program. So I'm super excited to be here today.
And then next one will be, hey, Jokanda, what's your feeling?
I'd be grateful to be able to share my experiences in Just You with the audience in RTHK.
Yeah, and not only positive feelings are accepted, some negative feelings are also accepted. For example, I feel a little bit tired because this day I have been busy talking with the schools on how to rearrange the activity. So the students can talk about these feelings and then they can get more connected.
I'm going to hold up a card. I'm saying curious. I don't know if people can see. I'm very curious to find out a little bit more how you help students and children identify emotions, because it's really important, starting them young, then they'll be able to express these emotions. We are live on Facebook as well, by the way. Noreen Mir on RTHK Radio 3. You'll be able to see Min, Raymond and Jokanda. They held up some very interesting feeling cards and has the word and also the facial expressions to help children, because sometimes you don't even know what word you're feeling. It's nice to be able to see the expressions. Yeah, sorry, go on, Min.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's a whole deck of cards, right? And with the range of human emotions. And you're right, kids don't naturally know these words. That's why we have these cards, and we have explicit curriculum to train parents and teachers on how to use these cards to communicate the children, so that parents and teachers also be models, walking models of being able to communicate openly about their emotional needs.
Yeah, Raymond?
Yeah, I'm just saying that I was trying to invite you, Noreen, because we showed you the card before, and I'm glad that you wrote that word.
But yes, but I didn't know how to draw curious. My drawing is so bad, so I won't scare the audience on Facebook. It's very interesting. You mentioned just now parents and teachers. A lot of the times, parents and teachers power through, and they don't even identify their emotions. Or sometimes, as adults, we're not so good at talking about our emotions. So how can adults and caregivers and teachers be better role models in identifying our own emotions and sharing them with students? Because we don't want to tell them we're feeling lonely. So I don't know, will it sort of scare them? Or is it a good thing to tell them our own fears? Min?
Yes, absolutely. We have to be honest about how we feel. Just like Raymond was very honest that he's tired today, so it's not always positive. We have to show to our children that it's okay to not always be okay. And when we model that, then they're more likely to be open when they don't feel okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I watched one of your promotional videos, and a beautiful video. And one thing that struck me was a little girl sharing her emotions. She wrote something for her father, and she said she was feeling brave to share her emotions, and she also wanted her father to feel brave to share his emotions. But the truth is, parents in Hong Kong work very long hours. The time that you do catch up and connect with your own children, you might just want to find out what's happening in their life. You don't really talk about your own feelings. How can parents sort of remember that and make a note? We should also share.
Yeah, and Noreen, you're right. But sometimes it doesn't take that long, but it's a practice or habit. So apart from the feelings and need cards, we develop this compassionate diary. So that, yeah, we all have one.
It's so funny because I can see your virtual background, and suddenly I see you reaching behind in the virtual background, and suddenly the diary appears. Okay, so this is the emotional journal diary. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we recognize that parents are busy and sometimes find it hard to build habits with their kids to share feelings. So as Min is sharing on that page, parents and kids can write their feelings and then share with each other. It just needs 5 to 10 minutes a day, and it builds habit. And
so is it on one side is the parents writing, the other side is the child writing. So we're doing it together, and that's where the parent can model for the children how to do this.
And I can see there are sort of the weather to denote how you feel. There's the rainy day, there's a cloudy day, and also a sunny day.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if it's because it's actually a 21-day program, so we suppose that students and parents children and parents could get to know more about the usage of this diary. And so in the advanced version, we invite them to write down 3 of their emotions of the day and feelings of the day, and share what has going on, and some of the little knowledge here is on how to, for example, trust different emotion knowledge to let children and parents to learn together, and some of the little mission for them to accomplish together during these times. And we actually just also provide parents workshop, and this is also relevant to my role as a shaper, because I, as a shaper, I'm aimed to shape school culture and compassionate communication culture in the society. And that's why I develop curriculum for schools, and I also develop workshops and hold workshops for teachers and parents. And one of the things we do with parents is to teach them how to use these tools and what ways to actually talk to children and to share with them and to so that they could actually have a better relationship and to be able to express themselves in a more effective and more compassionate way.
Yeah. Is it also cultural? Maybe, as Asians, we don't really talk about our emotions as much. And perhaps our parents didn't talk about their emotions and our grandparents didn't talk about their emotions. How can we address that? Because if parents are working, a lot of the caregivers are the grandparents. So it's like intergenerational, cultural. So how can we address that with our grandparents and get them to share their emotions?
But maybe we address your first point, Noreen. I think that is the very reason that we found that Raymond, Matthew, and Anthony founded Just Feel. So may I invite Raymond to speak a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. Actually, we see the problem. It's not only cultural, but part of the reason is Chinese culture rarely share our feelings. So our approach is we invite the parents to join the workshop. Not only that parents, but also, as you said, grandparents. Some grandparents did join our workshop and learn so much and then go back and share with their grandsons, granddaughters' feelings, and then came back and talk about that with the teachers. Hey, that's effective. We didn't try that before. And we also get the support from teachers because when teachers try to mobilize the parents to join the workshop, that will be so important for the school to form a community where everyone is learning how to better communicate with students through compassionate communication.
Yeah. We are, like I said, on Facebook Live as well, Noreen Mir on RTHK Radio 3, and we invite caregivers, parents, or, students, if you want to share your own observations and the effects of the pandemic on your emotional well-being. Bright Spark HK has written in, and she says, he says, sorry, my kid is too well connected on the internet and telephone. The problem is many kids' eyesight will have problems. And second, yes, we can phone teachers, but we, the parents, want control of our kids. The problem is parents having quick questions for child psychologists, but we don't want to go through welfare or round the block to get there. So that's bright spots. Yeah. Well, what about that point? That there's the problem with eyesight. You don't want them to be too glued to be on Zoom connections with their friends, and it's difficult to really understand more of the well-being of their children. Talking to teachers and child psychologists. Min, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is where parents have to A, be models, so we're not glued to our phones, right? And B, where we have to set boundaries for students. So on their age, right? What is developmental grade? There's no, scientific or conclusive answer on how many hours a child can be on a screen and it'd be okay for their eyesight. Of course, we know it shouldn't be 8-10 hours, but rather 2 to 3 hours, especially for the younger ones, and for the kindergartners, even less, right? But that means that there is more of a burden on parents because your children are at home now many more hours than they used to be. And if you don't have them on the screen, that means parents or their caregivers have to find fun activities for the students to do, to, in a way, fill the time productively.
Yeah. Des Soon writes in on Facebook and says, many parents and grandparents are very depressed now. No kidding. Expect a lot of sociological issues and tragedies in Hong Kong. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think, there's a lot of pressure for caregivers, for parents, for grandparents. There's a lot of instability, perhaps, for some people, and financially, or maybe in our society. And parents are quite frankly quite stressed out. So we should also be addressing the issues for parents and grandparents. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we totally agree. That's why we really want to cooperate with more schools so that through the school we can reach out to more parents or grandparents, because a lot of time the parents who need the help and support the most they are not reaching out the information on their own, so that we need schools to cooperate with Just Feel to help disseminate this information.
Yeah.
And
Sorry,
I
go on,
think
Min.
it takes the community, right? And for us to take care of each other, for parents, adults to be mindful of each other's emotional needs too. So not just the relationship between parent and child, but fellow adults, if you will. And for us to know that we're not alone, that we can always find others to support us through this very difficult time, and that it is these social connections that will get us through this tough time.
And how great that, you're part of the movement to educate a whole cohort of more compassionate children. Sometimes when the children, reaches out to the parents and say, it's okay, mommy, it's okay, daddy, it actually makes us feel a lot better, even if we're having a bad day, whatever you're going through. One thing I wanted to also ask is, for some children, or for some older children, they have an established friendship group, but because they don't see a lot of their friends, a lot of the times they sort of go into their own world and they can entertain themselves, with games or maybe online. And so maybe friendships sort of take a back seat. And how do you get those children to engage more with their friends?
I guess we all have to focus on their need. So when they play games, actually they are seeking for friendship too, because on the game they can share with their friends and fight the boss together and can get a kind of very mutual support. And so if we see the need behind, we can see some other alternatives. For example, can parents play some other games with kids, or can they invite their kids to hang out? Although we're afraid of the virus, but at least they can invite them to chat instead of just game. At the end of the day, we focus on the need and try to fulfill the need instead of just seeing their behavior.
Absolutely. I think students in Hong Kong actually face a lot of pressure. There's the academic pressure, that there's a pressure from parents and perhaps to some extent from the schools as well. And now there's that added pressure where they're learning online. So it's, it's harder to ask questions if they have questions about their work. With the students that you've worked with, what do they tell you? Are they struggling with their schoolwork, or is that sort of not an issue? What do you hear?
So, Jokanda, maybe you developed some curriculum, you can share some experience.
So, in curriculum, that we do Zoom classes nowadays. So we actually still provide some activities that we can conduct through Zoom. So I had feedbacks from teachers that they found those kind of interactive activities really engaging and interesting for them to get to know each other when they had classes at home. And we also design stories. We write stories. We have 3 characters, little red, little yellow, and little blue. So those stories about the encounters in school. And some of the students, younger ones, say that they are very eager and very keen on those stories, and they wish to follow the scenarios and the plots of the stories every time when they had class. So I think what we try to provide in curriculum is try to connect them and engage them during these times as well. And alongside with these engagement is still some knowledge that they could get from these stories, like how to make friends, how to connect with friends, and such.
Yeah. Finally, how can we encourage the students and our children in our lives to share their emotions? If they're not really prone to sharing, can we maybe get a deck of cards from you guys and actually sit down with them and say, how are you feeling today? But I feel like, is that too direct? Or should we do it indirectly? I don't know. How do we get the feelings out from children? Just simply ask them, how are you today? Or how should you start that conversation?
The whole idea really is being explicit as possible. And this is a lot of the training that we do with teachers and parents and empowering them to have these conversations. So what you're asking is exactly what we do in our parent and teacher workshops. And the tools that we've created are all designed to facilitate these sometimes difficult conversations, right? because you as a parent may not be comfortable asking these questions. So having these tools, I'm excited, and the students can go through the deck of cards to identify the feelings or the needs that they have today, or to do the exercises in the diary. So I think all of these help parents with these conversations.
Yeah. Well, finally, before we have one more comment on Facebook. Bright Spark HK says, you're going through computers. We, the parents, have to pay for program, computer setup system, viruses, printers. Schools have books. We spend thousands, but schools are using worksheets so that kids don't want to use the books. Especially after 5 hours of learning. Well, thank you very much indeed for your comment, Bright Spark. Finally, remind our listeners once again, Raymond, how can we find out more about Just Feel? Have you got a website and are you on social media?
Yeah, so for the audience, we are welcome to visit us and support us. So you can go to the website www.justfeel.hk or Facebook Just Feel 咁講.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And we've been chatting with Raymond Yang, the co-founder of Just Feel, a member of the board of directors, Dr. Min Tran, and also Jacunda Young, who is the shaper from Just Feel, responsible for shaping school cultures and communications between parents, students, and teachers. Many thanks for your time this afternoon and Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us. Bye. Take care.
Thank you.